They uncovered the shocking transformation of Apostle Peter from humble fisherman to martyr. Few knew what truly happened that night. It was a time of turmoil. The air crackled with uncertainty, and the streets of Jerusalem were alive with whispers. Soldiers patrolled, their armor clanging ominously like a death knell. Shadows danced in the flickering torchlight, casting eerie images of fear and hope. Peter, once a simple fisherman, found himself teetering on the edge of greatness and despair. Just days before, he had walked on water, the waves roaring beneath his feet. Now, uncertainty gripped him like a vice. His hands trembled as he recalled the whispered accusations against him. "You were with him," they spat, their faces twisted with contempt. His heart raced. Could he confess his loyalty? Or was denial his only escape? In that moment, the weight of destiny pressed down on him. The Last Supper echoed in his mind, the way Jesus had gazed at him, those piercing eyes full of hope. The room had been filled with promises, but now it was shrouded in betrayal and doubt. Blood ran cold at the thought, what if he faltered again? The night was thick with whispers of miracles and impending doom. As he crossed paths with other disciples, their faces were pale, haunted. They gathered in secret, eyes flitting nervously to the door. Every creak made them flinch, every whisper could be a death sentence. The mystery of their shared fate hung over them like a dark cloud. Would they all stand together, bold as lions, or scatter like lost sheep? Above them, the moon cast an eerie glow, illuminating the way forward into unknown peril. He could feel the weight of expectation. People were watching, waiting for a sign, for a miracle. What would happen if he delivered? Could he prove them wrong? The tension twisted in his gut. A promise filled with uncertainty. His heart beat faster. What would come next? Could he rise to the challenge or crumble beneath the burden of that fateful night? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night pressed on, thick with tension and unanswered questions. As Peter stood at the threshold of their hiding place, listening to the distant sounds of Jerusalem, he felt a pull deep within him, a sense of calling that was both frightening and exhilarating. Surrounding him, the disciples were weighed down by fear, yet glimmers of hope flickered in their gazes. They shared a bond forged by their experiences, miracles witnessed, and the charismatic presence of Jesus. Simon, the zealot, spoke first, breaking the silence that hung heavy in the air. "We cannot hide in shadows any longer. We have witnessed too much to remain silent." His voice, though resolute, trembled with ferocity. The others nodded in agreement, their faces etched with a mix of determination and dread. Peter turned to the group, their eager faces searching for strength. "We have not been called to retreat. If we believe in the promise of his teachings, then we must stand firm." The words felt like a lifeline, offered in a moment of suffocating uncertainty. Yet, deep in the creases of his mind, doubt lingered like a dark specter. He had already faltered before, denying his master when the night grew cold. How could he dare to lead them now? As the disciples debated their next move, Mary Magdalene entered, breathless and eyes wide. "He is alive!" she exclaimed, her voice quaking with a fervor that ignited whispers of hope. "The stone is rolled away, and the tomb is empty. He has risen." A hush fell upon the gathering, disbelief mixed with the echoes of joy and terror. The notion of a resurrected Christ sent waves of relief and anxiety through Peter. Could it be true? He thought, heart pounding against trepidation. Yet, beneath the layers of joy, he felt a haunting question arise within: would he be worthy to face Jesus again after his cowardice? One by one, the disciples began to speak of their encounters with the risen Lord, their voices weaving tales of hope and disbelief. Each story pulled Peter further into their shared journey, a journey that challenged him to confront the reality of his fears. In that moment of connection, the heavy veil of isolation began to lift, leaving room for the deeper questions that had been brewing in the silence of their hiding. Why would he choose to return to us after our failures? Peter pondered aloud, wrestling with the vulnerability of his own heart. What are we meant to learn from this? As night slipped into the early hours of dawn, the whispers of hope coalesced, transforming into a palpable longing for courage. They understood they were part of something larger, a movement that required their bravery and faith. Each disciple felt a stirring not just for themselves but for the world outside that waited in darkness. With resolute hearts, they gathered in a circle, hands clasped together, praying for strength. Peter felt the energy shift, a bond reaffirmed amidst their fears. He began to pray aloud, but deep within him, another prayer emerged, the yearning for forgiveness and understanding. Lord, if you are counting on us, grant us the courage we need to uphold your message. Yet as they prayed, even the air seemed charged with the weight of mystery. The question lingered: what awaited them in the light of day? Would they rise to fulfill their purpose, or would they again be gripped by their fears? As the first rays of dawn peeked through shuttered windows, a new chapter loomed on the horizon. Would they step into their destiny, or would the shadows of their doubt consume them once more? The dawn broke with hesitant brilliance, the soft light spilling into the hidden room where fear had once reigned. As the light filtered through cracks in the wall, it illuminated Peter's face, revealing the tumult of turmoil and anticipation that lingered in his heart. He felt as if time had paused, the air thick with unspoken promises yet to be fulfilled. Gathered in a circle, the disciples turned to each other, their spirits uplifted by the news Mary had brought. Hope was a fragile blossom in the chill of uncertainty, and as they shared visions of what lay ahead, it began to take root. Simon the Zealot, emboldened by his earlier fervor, spoke again. If our Master lives, then so must our faith. We owe it to him to carry his word to all nations. Matthew, always careful with his thoughts, regarded Simon with deep contemplation. But what if we are not ready? What if the world out there is as dangerous as we fear? His voice trailed off, allowing the weight of doubt to settle among them. Each disciple understood the gravity of stepping into the light. They had witnessed the tides of hostility that swirled around them in the wake of Jesus' trial and crucifixion. Peter sensed their hesitations. He stood, compelled by an inner strength that felt newly awakened. We will never be ready if we remain here, in hiding, he declared. Each moment we stand idle, the words of our Master linger unspoken, the miracles unwitnessed. He felt the eyes of his companions resting on him, searching for resolve in the face of his past failures. Remember his final command: go therefore and make disciples of all nations. We cannot turn away from this calling, Peter emphasized. His voice grew steadier as memories of their time with Jesus flooded back, their shared meals, the miraculous moments, and the deep teachings he had imparted. He trusted us, even when I faltered. He believed in our potential to spread hope. As the words tumbled from his lips, Peter felt a transformation begin within him, a conviction that spoke of more than mere duty. This was a chance to embrace purpose beyond his fears. Suddenly, the ache of his previous denials shifted into a resolve to affirm his belief with action, to embody the very courage he sought. Murmurs of agreement spread through the group, and there, amid them, Mary Magdalene rose. Let us not forget the joy he brought us, the freedom from our own chains. My heart swells with the memory of his kindness. He came to us not to condemn, but to lift us up. Now we are called to extend that same compassion. Her spirit radiated warmth, igniting embers of courage in their hearts. The dawn's light strengthened, spilling clarity into their resolve. They set their intentions in the sacred act of communion, remembering their Master's last meal with them. Let us break bread, Peter suggested, the ritual pulling them together in shared remembrance and strength. As they each took the bread, his heart thudded with the weight of the moment. This was not merely sustenance, it was a communion of faith, a promise that they were more than their fears. They were the bearers of his message, the ones called to give voice to the silent. But as they ate, unease stirred deep within Peter. Thoughts of persecution, loss, and uncertainty filled his mind, swirling in a tempest of reflection. Would they truly have the strength to face what lay ahead? Would he falter again? His inner doubts were a persistent shadow, a part of him that refused to yield to this newfound light. Why have we been chosen? He asked, breaking the silence that had settled after their meal. What if we fail? The question echoed in the stillness, bringing forth a contemplative heaviness. The disciples looked at one another, their fate intertwined, yet no one could provide a clear answer. They were venturing into the unknown, a journey steeped in faith yet riddled with mystery. And as they prepared to step into the world, the haunting question lingered in the air: were they ready to accept their sacrifices for the sake of his calling, and in doing so, what price would they ultimately pay? Thus, the dawn heralded not just a new day, but the beginning of a movement, shrouded in uncertainty and propelled by the fervor of their newfound belief. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows on the streets that lay before the disciples as they ventured out. Each step felt weighted with meaning, a pilgrimage set against the backdrop of the city bustling with life. They were but a handful compared to the throngs of so many souls unaware of the profound transformation that was unfolding. Peter led the group, his heart a tumultuous blend of determination and trepidation. The faces of those lost in the crowd were like reflections of his own struggles, the uncertainty, the flicker of hope, and the deep-seated desire for acceptance. He knew the power that lay within their message but also the danger that loomed. Behind him, the footsteps of his brothers were heavy with a shared sense of purpose, and yet, beneath the surface, an undercurrent of fear surged through their ranks. As they reached the marketplace, the cacophony of voices grew louder. Peter felt a pull, a call to speak again among the people. Here, among the seekers, the lost, and the weary, he thought, we must share the good news. A marketplace booth stood nearby, and with a deep breath, he climbed atop it, raising his hands to capture the crowd's attention. The murmurs diminished, and he found himself gazing into countless faces, a mosaic of despair and longing. Brothers and sisters, he began, his voice quaking but determined. I know your hearts are burdened, as mine once was. We lived in darkness, imprisoned by fear and doubt. But listen. The one who was crucified, the one who spoke of love and redemption, is risen. He has triumphed over death for all of us. The crowd shifted, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Some exchanged skeptical glances, while others began to lean in, curiosity replacing indifference. Matthew stepped closer, his heart racing, knowing well the ground on which they now tread. The message was one of liberation, yet the specter of reprisal loomed over them. Peter could sense it, the weight of what they might face: hostility, rejection, even violence. But his fervor surged, fueled by the echoes of Jesus' teachings and the memory of the compassion he had shown. Whatever they faced, he felt they were inextricably linked, the fears and hopes woven into a single tapestry that told of their journey. Turn your hearts towards the light. He implored, summoning the courage from deep within. For the one who died is not gone, he lives. He gave his life for love. What could we offer in return if not our own? The words fell from his lips with the resonance of truth, igniting something in the assembled crowd. Yet, just as momentum began to build, a sharp voice rang out from the back. You speak of resurrection, yet our leaders have declared him a blasphemer. What makes your words true? The skeptics had emerged, challenging the guarantee that was supposed to accompany such a monumental claim. Peter's heart raced. The moment felt fragile, fluttering like a delicate leaf caught in a storm. He faced the crowd, unsure how to reply. A glance at his disciples, their eyes wide with anticipation and fear, fueled him anew. It is not by our strength that I stand here. It is the love that transformed our hearts, his light that shattered the darkness. Will you, too, not seek this truth? With a wave of uncertainty, the crowd murmured again, some swayed while others shook their heads. Those familiar with the crucifixion bore scars of pain that clung tightly to their souls. And yet, for every face that turned away, another brightened with a glimmer of understanding. Simon the Zealot stepped forward, emboldened by Peter's courage. These words, he said, are not merely for the moment, they are seeds planted for the future. We have seen miracles, we have witnessed his power. Join us in sharing this truth. Come and see. A ripple of excitement spread through the crowd, drawing in the curious and the hopeful. The marketplace, once filled with idle chatter, now hummed with the possibility of renewal. But as night approached, the shadows grew long and the hearts of the disciples trembled in their chests. They had ignited a spark, yet they were painfully aware that discord could erupt at any time, a storm threatening to extinguish the flame of faith they had begun to kindle. Had they merely sown the seeds of hope, or had they unwittingly awakened a tempest? As they stepped back from their newfound platform, the question lingered in Peter's mind: in their quest to bring forth hope, could they also be forging a path that led to their suffering? Would their voices be silenced, or would they blossom into a movement that would echo across generations? The answer lay hidden in the unfolding narrative of their faith. The shadows deepened as twilight settled over the city, engulfing the marketplace in a cloak of uncertainty. The disciples gathered once more in a dimly lit alleyway, their breaths coming out in whispered clouds amongst the cool evening air. Peter, still riding on the adrenaline of his speech, could feel the weight of his position pressing down harder than ever. Conflicted upon the threshold of faith and fear, his mind was a storm of questions: did we truly reach them? James murmured, breaking the silence as they huddled close. Or have we simply stirred up more doubt? His tone was heavy, colored by the possibility of persecution yet unspoken. Our words were truth, born from the love we have witnessed, said John, his eyes bright with belief, even as a flicker of worry danced behind them. But this is just the beginning. They need time, Peter echoed, a bitter taste forming in his mouth. Time may not be a luxury we possess. The reality of who they were, of the consequences of their actions, settled like a stone in his stomach. As the sounds of the city faded into the background, a hush enveloped the group. Each man bore the marks of their labors. Their hands were calloused not only by toil but now also by a growing awareness of the stakes involved in proclaiming the resurrection. A new kind of burden was upon them, one that came with the weight of their witness. Do you remember, Peter began, his voice low but steady, the day he called us from the boats? We thought we were merely fishermen. He saw men who could change the world. The memory was vivid, and he could almost hear the gentle lapping of the waves against their boats, the clarity of the call. Yet now their mission felt as vast as the ocean, deep and uncharted. Andrew leaned closer, his brow furrowed with concern. But what if we are to sacrifice everything we hold dear for this truth? I love my family, I do not wish to see them suffer. Peter looked into the faces of his brothers, souls woven together not just by blood but by shared vision. Is it possible, he mused, that the very suffering we fear could be part of our purpose? Could our trials serve a greater good, unknowable to us now? The air was thick with contemplation. Questions hung like stars obscured by clouds, caught in the tension of fresh fear and profound hope. They spoke of their wish to heal the broken, to awaken divine love among the hearts of the many. Yet, the notion of martyrdom was unfamiliar and chilling, a concept they had only explored in sacred texts as a distant reality. Just then, a figure emerged from the alleys, cloaked in shadows. It was Barnabas, bringing with him collected whispers of the crowd's reaction. The priest stirred uneasily, he stated, briefly glancing around, ensuring he was not being watched. Rumors of your gathering spread. They see you as a threat, and they might soon seek to silence you. The group fell into an uneasy silence, contemplating the implications of Barnabas's words. Fear wrapped around their hearts, but along with it, a flame flickered within them, urging them forward. What was this stirring within them? Was it mere ambition for growth, or the call of something far greater, a divine design unfolding? Peter stepped forward, his heart quickening. Brothers, if we are to encounter peril, let us do so together. Let our hearts be the vessel of his love, for that is a love that knows no bounds. We must not shy away from the shadows, we must light them with the truth we carry. As he spoke, something transformed in the gathering. The fear morphed into resolve. They began to understand that the stakes of their resurrection were intertwined not just with their lives but with the lives of many, their witness a bridge between despair and hope. With a shared breath, they clasped hands, feeling the warmth of commitment and solidarity igniting beneath their palms. Yet even in this moment of unity, unarticulated questions lingered, weaving through their thoughts. what would it mean to truly carry this burden? Was the call to faith also a call to sacrifice? If they stepped into the fray, would their hope be deemed as foolishness by a world steeped in darkness? The answers eluded them, hidden in the murky waters of the unknown. And so, they prepared to face the dawn, uncertain but unwavering. In this new chapter of their journey, they were left to ponder, in seeking to spread love, would they be embraced by the world, or would they be haunted by the shadows of grief that came from walking the path of true discipleship? As dawn broke, the pale light infused the city with an ethereal glow, casting long shadows that danced across the cobblestones. The disciples gathered once more, filled with uncertainty but resolute in their purpose. Peter stood at the forefront, feeling the weight of his calling tug at his very essence. He was no longer merely a fisherman but a shepherd of souls, entrusted with a truth both beautiful and terrifying. "Let us venture to the temple again," he proposed, his voice steady despite the quivering of his spirit. "For it is there the hearts of men may be softened, perhaps this time, we might reach those who have closed their ears." He could sense the tension within the group, an unspoken fear constricting their thoughts. The air grew thick with apprehension as they made their way through the narrow streets. Each footfall echoed with the enormity of their quest. How would they proclaim their message today? Would it resonate, or would it be met with hostility? James paused, gripping Peter's arm gently. "Do you truly believe that our words will carry weight? Or are we merely casting our nets into a stormy sea, hoping for the gentlest of tides?" His question hung between them, heavy with doubt yet laced with genuine concern. Peter's heart raced. "We have been called to speak truth. If we are brave enough to share his love, can we not trust that he will guide our words? They may be weary, but hope can arise from the ashes of despair." They entered the temple courts, and the growing crowd quickly formed around them, a mix of curiosity and skepticism swirling in the air. Voices rose and fell like waves crashing upon the shore, and as Peter stood under the scrutiny of many eyes, he was reminded of the first time Jesus had turned to him on the shores of Galilee. Suddenly, the air shifted, murmurs intensified as a Pharisee stepped forth, cloaked in authority. His gaze pierced through the crowd, and an uneasy silence fell. "You men speak of resurrection and hope. But your words sow discord among the people. You must cease this folly before it leads to unrest." James clenched his fists, but Peter took a step forward, emboldened. "We speak not of discord but of a love that transcends fear. Our Lord is risen. He walks among us in spirit and calls us to share his message of hope and redemption." Anger flashed across the Pharisee's face, but a flicker of uncertainty danced behind his resolute demeanor. "You speak of love, yet you defy the very laws we uphold. This cannot continue." The tension in the air thickened as Peter felt the congregation shift, divided between apprehension and intrigue. As the dispute escalated, John caught sight of a young man standing in the back, his eyes wide and searching. Could he sense the revelation that lingered in the air? Just as Peter opened his mouth to continue, the man stepped forward, trembling yet resolute. "What must I do to be saved?" His voice rang out, cutting through the thick atmosphere, a beacon in the shadows. In that moment, everything felt suspended. The weight of the world seemed to balance on Peter's next words. The urgency of the question rang in the hearts of the gathering, an echo of their own desires to find truth amidst the chaos. Peter's heart swelled, his spirit surged with the grace bestowed upon him. "Repent, and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ. For the promise is for you and for your children, and for all who are far off, everyone whom the Lord our God calls to him." The young man nodded, eyes shining with hope as he sought a path to illumination. But with Peter's declaration came a fresh wave of discontent from the Pharisee, his fury growing in the face of rising belief among the people. "This is blasphemy and treason," he thundered. "You threaten everything we hold sacred." Yet within the chaos emerged whispers of support and admiration, igniting the spark of faith among many gathered. The crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, unsure of what to feel. Shadows of fear wrestled with the illumination of hope. How could such paradoxes coexist, Peter felt. The ground shifting beneath him, could this young man's plea herald a shift in the very foundation of their struggle? With every heartbeat, the gravity of the moment pulsed within him. He dared to believe that the divine thread binding their lives could lead to something unimaginable. As Peter locked eyes with the young man, the question lingered: what awaited them should this burgeoning faith ignite the passions of many? Would they find strength in their unity, or would they be cast out like the waters that once surrounded their boats? The journey was still unfolding, and the mysteries before them loomed vast and uncharted. As the murmurs echoed through the temple, Peter felt the urgency of the young man's question reverberate in his soul. Relentless waves of emotion surged within him, blurring the lines between fear and fervor. What must I do to be saved? The inquiry was not just a plea, it was a challenge to the very foundations of their faith. The Pharisee stepped forward, his stance menacing, his voice low and quaking with authority. You preach of salvation, yet you lead these people into chaos. Our traditions are sacred, they provide order. What you offer is a path to destruction. But Peter's gaze remained fixed on the young man. In that moment, he saw not just an individual seeking salvation, but a glimpse of the multitude that might follow. This is not chaos, Peter implored, his voice rising above the din, echoing in the hollow spaces of the temple. This is hope manifesting amidst despair. Our Lord calls not just us, but all who seek his light. The crowd paused, their attention stolen by the undulating passion in Peter's voice. Some nodded, emboldened by recognition of their own hidden yearning, while others remained anchored by doubt. James exchanged glances with John, the gravity of the unspoken fear evident in their eyes. Remember the words of the prophet, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will see visions, your old men will dream dreams. Are we not fulfilling these promises today? Peter continued, his fervor drawing the listeners in, as if weaving a tapestry of hope that danced against the backdrop of hardened hearts. The young man stepped closer, eyes glistening with tears of longing. I have spent too long lost, filled with darkness. If this promise is for me, I want it. I want more than the silence I've known. His plea resonated deep, a sharp contrast to the unwavering resolve of the Pharisee who heartily stood his ground. Your words are seducing the hearts of the naive. The Pharisee countered, yet the tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. You promise freedom, but what you offer is a yoke to new burdens. And then there was silence, a heaviness that pulled on the collective breath of the crowd. Could this truly be a moment of revelation? Peter took a step toward the young man, lowering his voice. I understand your fears. We all know the weight of our pasts. He raised his eyes, sweeping his gaze across the assembly, every soul reflecting a different story of struggle and yearning. But in Jesus, burdens are lifted. To be saved is to know his presence cradling you in moments of despair, to be woven into a tapestry of grace and love. A ripple of energy pulsed through the crowd, a mingling of hope and uncertainty. The Pharisee's face reddened with indignation, yet he faltered, sensing the shifting tide among the people. Would this unprepared ground support the seeds of faith they sought to plant, or were they to be swept away by the storm of opposition? Would you risk your position for promises untested? He questioned, gesturing to Peter. You are treading on dangerous ground, one that could cost you everything you hold dear. That we may be fishermen, but we have been called to be fishers of men, Peter answered boldly. Would you rather remain in the shadows of tradition, or step into the light of renewal? A tension hung like fog in the air as the conflict deepened. The crowd's murmured responses danced between defiance and faith. What did this call mean? It was both a liberation and a challenge, pulling away the veils of their understanding and exposing raw vulnerability. As hope battled against the weight of tradition, the young man took a step toward Peter, a decision forming in his heart. I am ready, he proclaimed, voice steady with newfound determination. I will follow. Peter felt his heart quicken, a burgeoning realization dawning within him of the fracture forming within their beliefs. In pursuing the truth, they were also stepping into the unknown, a journey laden with trials. Yet as the people started to approach in droves, some with skeptical eyes and others glowing with passion, Peter sensed the winds of change. Each voice added layers to the melody of their gathering, singing of an uncharted faith that could not simply dissolve into it. but would this shared yearning be enough to sustain them against the storms gathering on the horizon? Would transformation lead to revival or persecution? As the crowd began to swell around them, Peter couldn't help but wonder what would the next step demand from each heart yearning for light, and what would it cost them all. As the weighty silence lifted, the crowd, like leaves stirred by an unseen wind, seemed to shift ever so slightly toward a common purpose. Peter's heart thumped heavily in his chest, an echo of a new conviction igniting within him the spark of a fire that had long been smoldering untamed beneath the surface of tradition. It was then, amidst the uncertainty, that a woman with wrinkled skin and a presence woven with years of suffering stepped forward, her frail frame stark against the crowd's swirling energy. "Peter," she called, her voice trembling but clear. "What do you say to those of us who have lost everything? What hope do we have left?" Her question pierced the air like a well-aimed arrow, and Peter felt the air thicken with a collective breath held in anticipation. He recognized her, the widow of a man who had once tried to make sense of his faith under the burden of the very laws they wrestled with. This question was not just hers, it echoed the hearts of many. "Your loss does not diminish your worth in the eyes of the Lord," Peter replied, stepping toward her with an open heart. "In him, we find our restoration. Jesus came not to draw distinctions among us but to uplift the broken, to reclaim what seems lost. He calls us to build anew, to breathe life into the ashes of our despair." The widow's eyes glimmered, the faintest flicker of hope igniting within her gaze, yet there was a shadow that lingered. "And when the world continues to turn its back on us, how do we fight back against the rejection?" Peter considered her question, which was so much deeper than mere words. He could feel the collective heartbeat of those around him, thrumming with their doubts and fears. They were not only searching for hope, they were yearning for a courageous stance against the despair that had clouded their days. "I cannot promise that it will be easy," Peter admitted, his voice rising with conviction. "The path ahead may lead us to trials that test our hearts and our faith. But believe this, faith is not a shield against suffering. It is the very light that guides us through it. Together, we are called to face the darkness in solidarity, to create a community of love and resilience embodying the Spirit of Christ." At that moment, a murmur rippled through the crowd that began to transform, each heart absorbing a piece of the message. They hungered for this vision of a united front. Yet, in the embrace of newfound courage, there was still fear of the storm that brewed without. The Pharisee's voice, heavy with disdain, sliced through the air once more. "And what of sacrifice?" he challenged. "What of adherence to our laws? You speak of love as if it were all that mattered, but love can lead people astray. Without the structure of our traditions, we risk losing everything that binds us together." Peter turned to him, the fire in his spirit unmistakable, unwavering. "Tradition has value, but love is the root of our faith. It cannot be contained in mere rules. It must live and breathe amongst us, guiding our actions and our thoughts. This is the essence of what Jesus taught. We are called to forge a new understanding, one that transcends the confines of fear and rigid expectation." The crowd nodded, many whispering amongst themselves, the wheels of thought turning with the gravity of Peter's words. Still, doubt loomed large like a cloud ready to burst. "Peter," the widow spoke again, her voice now steadier, but laced with the concern of all who listened, "if we embrace this new way, what becomes of those who hold tightly to the past? Can they not turn against us?" A heavy pause fell. It was a question steeped in reality, for history had often shown that change, however hopeful, could provoke resistance fierce enough to spark conflict. Peter felt the weight of her words as if they were a prayer cast out into the unknown. "Transformation speaks into the very fabric of our lives," he finally replied, his voice softened but firm. "Those who resist change will meet us at every corner. Yet love does not acquiesce but persists, beckoning those entangled in fear to join in healing, rather than division. The question we face is not merely about our steps but about our hearts, and how wide they are willing to stretch." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light that shimmered around them, Peter felt the energy of compassion arising. Change beckoned them all into a sacred journey, yet it was undeniable that this was just the beginning, the starting point of a long path yet to be forged together. Would the collective courage of their hearts be enough to overcome the resistance brewing around them? And as they took their first steps forward into this grace-filled unknown, would they find the unity to bear the weight of their mission? Or would the very love that called them together become the backdrop for their greatest trials yet? As the crowd absorbed Peter's fervent words, a stillness settled around them, heavy with contemplation. Hope intertwined with trepidation, they were on the edge of something monumental, yet they could not ignore the shadows looming over their burgeoning faith. Among those gathered, a young man named Matthew leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "Peter," he called out, his voice echoing the anxieties shared by many. "What of those who have lost faith entirely? What will become of them in this new chapter you envision?" Peter's gaze swept over the crowd, searching the depths of their faces, each etched with stories of doubt and despair. He recalled his own journey, the moments when fear had threatened to drown him, leaving him wrestling in uncertainty. "To abandon hope is a heavy burden," he said slowly, "yet even the most wavering heart is not beyond the reach of grace. We must become beacons for them, witnesses of Christ's enduring love." A ripple of murmurs followed Peter's declaration, but amidst the hopeful whispers, a voice of dissent rose again from the Pharisees. A leader, draped in robed authority and resentment, stepped forth. "And what of the sacrilege of this faith you propose? Do you preach that we should forsake our values? Do you challenge the very foundation of our identity?" Peter's heart sank momentarily, burdened by the unyielding light cast on the tensions stirring beneath the surface. "It is not our values I challenge, but rather the barriers they often create," he replied, determined to unify rather than divide. "Jesus has called us to love above all, that is the greatest commandment. Yet, we have often misused our rules to alienate rather than embrace." The elder Pharisee stood firm, his face a mask of indignation. "You would have us dismantle our traditions for the sake of uncertain promises? It is chaos you invite." As the man's words hung in the air like a dark shroud, Peter felt a surge of urgency. "Tradition serves to guide us, yes," he affirmed, "but it must not bind us. When love is our compass, our true identity will be revealed not in fear, but in brave compassion." At that moment, a soft, trembling voice emerged from the back of the crowd. "But Peter," it called out, laden with vulnerability, "what if the fear turns to anger? What if we are met with hostility? It is easy to say these things, but how do we love when faced with hate?" Scanning the crowd again, Peter recognized the speaker, an artist who had lost the patronage of her supporters after embracing a vision that many deemed too radical. "The path of love is seldom easy," he replied, his heart aching with understanding, "yet it is the most potent force we possess. We must be willing to stand even when we are met with disdain. For in the struggle lies our shared humanity." The widow's eyes sparkled with renewed hope, yet the crowd's unease lingered, simmering beneath the surface like water waiting to boil. Silent apprehension hovered within the space, ignited by their yearning for change and their fear of rejection. As nightfall approached, a hush enveloped them, and the stars began to emerge, celestial reminders of the divine. Peter looked into the gathering eyes, searching for signs of strength and unity. "Look around you," he urged. "These are not mere faces of strangers, they are your brothers and sisters. Together, we must weather the storms, uplifting each other through a love rooted in understanding." A murmur of agreement flowed through the crowd, but doubt still flickered in their minds. Yet, as Peter contemplated their struggles, he sensed an invisible thread weaving them all together, a call to something greater. A glimmer of a deeper truth broke through the veil of fear, as if the very heavens were whispering an invitation to embrace the uncertainty of faith. "Will we fear the storms ahead," he called, "or will we rise together to meet them with the steadfast heart of communal love? This is the choice set before us. In embracing one another, we shall encounter the divine mysteries intended for those brave enough to seek them." As Peter's voice echoed off the stones, he felt the moment was transformative yet filled with questions that danced just beyond reach. What awaited them on this road of faith, and how would their actions foster the blossoming of a community tethered to both love and resilience? In the face of adversity, would they find the courage to dismantle the divides among them, or would they be stifled by the very fears they longed to overcome? As night surrendered to the dawn, the fresh light of morning revealed a world still burdened by uncertainty yet glistening with newfound possibility. The disciples had spent the previous night huddled together, their hearts still and minds racing, embracing the transformative turmoil that had pulsed through their souls. Peter felt a stirring within him, a divine assurance, a whisper that prompted him forward. As he stood among his brothers, the air heavy with anticipation, he sensed the weight of a calling that transcended their fears. This was not simply about proclaiming the resurrection of Christ, it was about nurturing a community anchored in love amid a world steeped in darkness. They would not dance around the edges of doubt nor retreat from the tumult ahead. They would walk boldly into the light, ready to share their story, their truth. Brothers, Peter said, the warmth of the sun illuminating his face. Today, we are not just witnesses to the miracle of his resurrection, we are testimonies of his enduring love and hope. Let us take this message into the streets and cradle the weary, empower the broken, and awaken the faith slumbering in so many hearts. As they stepped onto the path that led into Jerusalem, a sense of urgency flared within Peter, a palpable pull toward the people who lingered in doubt and despair. Their journey echoed with the murmur of hope and the scent of miracles yet to unfold. With every step, he felt the unexpected burden of responsibility that each soul they encountered had the potential to be transformed through their message. His heart quickened. They ventured into the bustling marketplace, where life throbbed beneath layers of routine and tradition. Peter looked around at the faces, laborers, mothers, the aging, the lost. Some bore the indifference of the past, while others held curiosity that shimmered like light at dawn. Would they listen? Would their hearts be willing to receive? With a deep breath, Peter climbed once more onto a makeshift stand, his voice carrying fervently as he reclaimed the space for hope. People of Jerusalem, gather round. We are witnesses to a great awakening. The one who was crucified has risen. He stands not in judgment, but with open arms, beckoning each of you to come forth and know the glory of his love. The crowd paused, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue alive in their eyes. A ripple of hushed conversation washed through the throng. Peter felt the stir of hearts leaning closer, some seeking more than just words. They yearned for connection, for solace in their struggle. Then, from the fringes of the crowd, a figure emerged. It was the same young man who had spoken out the day before, eyes bright with newfound determination. If this is true, he announced, voice steadfast, then I wish to be part of this journey. I, too, want to follow. The young man's response was a beacon, igniting murmurs of agreement among those nearby. Peter's heart soared, confidence surged through his veins as he continued, and you are not alone. Join us, and let us be vessels of his love. The promise of hope is for all who seek it. There is no fear in his embrace, only freedom. Come and be baptized in this new life. As waves of interest ignited around them, Matthew stepped forward, inspired by the contagious strength in the air. Hear us. Our testimonies are not tales of grandeur, but our humble journeys intertwined with the grace of our risen Lord. We come not to force belief but to share the love that invites. Laughter and tears mingled in the crowd, the shared humanity beginning to mend their fractured spirits. More joined the young man, stepping forward to seek transformation, while others cast questioning glances, contemplating their own divisions and doubts. Peter sensed a shift, a divine current sweeping through the crowd, bridging the seemingly uncrossable chasms of fear and judgment. Children laughed, men and women whispered, their hearts stirring beneath the weight of hope. Behind him, the Pharisee glowered, face twisted in fury and dismay. This cannot be. The law must prevail. He bellowed defiantly, yet Peter stood undeterred before this storm, feeling an unwavering peace within. The law is fulfilled in love, he proclaimed confidently. We stand not against tradition but for a promise that embraces every heart. Hope cannot be revived by fear, but by love. As Peter spoke, a wave of transformation rippled through the gathering. A woman stepped forward, tears running down her weathered cheeks. I have lost my family to sorrow, she choked out. Am I worthy of this awakening? Peter's eyes locked onto hers, deep wells of understanding and compassion swirled within. His love is not contingent on our worthiness, dear sister, it is a gift freely given. Come, be reborn into the embrace of love and acceptance. You are worthy to carry a light that was born within you. The will to follow began to spread like wildfire. The marketplace swelled with curious onlookers, lingering breathless as hearts began to open amid the rising tide of belief. Those once plagued by fear stood vulnerable before a revelation that was both tender and fierce. That day, thousands would step forward. They would shed cloaks of shame and worry, plunging into the waters of baptism as the rising sun cast reflections across the shimmering surface. A new community, galvanized by love and binding together in faith, began to form. They surfaced anew, uniting in a promise of redemption and hope in their eyes, hope, which had blossomed from the ashes of fear. The days turned into weeks as the movement gained momentum, blossoming like wildflowers across the land. Yet doubt still whispered in the corners of many hearts, and the threat of opposition loomed large. As evening swallowed the sun one fateful day, Peter gathered with the disciples, reflecting on the transformation they had sparked. "What lies ahead will not be easy," he spoke quietly, meeting each eye with resolve. "But we walk this path with grace, sharing his love, urging others to step into the light." Then it happened. The clamor of discord erupted from the shadows. The Pharisees rallied their forces. They stormed into the midst, weapons drawn, clashing hard against hope and resistance. "You disrupt the peace of Jerusalem," they accused, fingers pointed, rage spitting fire into the night. "What madness has taken hold?" Peter, shaken but unyielding, felt a voice rise within him, both fierce and soothing. "This is not madness, it is divine. To speak truth is to invite change." Yet even as he declared it, doubt shivered at the threshold of his heart. Was he truly prepared to bear the weight of this calling? In that instant, a powerful revelation struck him, a moment of raw clarity amidst chaos. He remembered the promise of Jesus, "And even the gates of hell shall not prevail against you." Courage swelled within him, igniting a flame that could not be extinguished. "Let me tell you something," Peter shouted boldly, steadying the trembling chords of his voice. "We are here to love in the face of fear, to reveal light in darkness. We will speak forgiveness, we will embrace compassion. Let it be heard throughout the land that his paths lead us toward reconciliation and peace." In that pivotal moment, Peter saw the flicker of uncertainty in the eyes of those opposing them. The battle against love, and against the promise that transcended fear, was not one they could silence. As voices from both sides clashed, something deeper shifted in the atmosphere. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could change hearts even amidst hatred. Those who surrounded Peter began to echo his convictions, their voices blending into a singular call for unity. Each shout wielded a lyricism that stirred something sacred in the air. They did not fight with weapons of anger, but with words drenched in love. And as the dusk enveloped them, transforming the horizon into hues of gold, Peter felt a force of profound clarity emerge within him. Love is not passive. It is active, alive and stirring. It refuses to be silenced. It can break chains, and in breaking, it lights a fire within each heart. We choose to ignite that fire in ourselves and in everyone around us. Among the raucous tide, simmering voices matured into one. The resurrection of faith reverberated across Jerusalem, a love that forged bonds deep and unyielding. As the shadows danced and cloaked the city, one thing was certain: the legacy of Jesus would triumph against the odds, change the folds of society, and lead many toward light. And even as the stakes rose higher, persecution looming just beyond the horizon, Peter felt the arms of unwavering hope encircle him. "In faith, we are never alone," he whispered, understanding now that the path forward would be laden with trials. Yet within each trial lay opportunities to turn darkness into light, fear into compassion, and despair into hope. With faith unwavering, Peter and his brothers would forge ahead, equipped not just with the message of resurrection, but the embodiment of love, their legacy etched into the very fabric of history, echoing into the future. Amid the silence that followed, the world held its breath, but the heart of their mission beat steadily within. What began with humble fishermen had the potential to transform into a movement that transcended to me, a journey where love became the beacon guiding those seeking light through their darkest hours. As they stepped forward, Peter gazed into the faces surrounding him, souls once lost now transformed. His heart swelled with hope and an unyielding sense of purpose, for they were the bearers of truth, called not only to heal but to illuminate the entire world with his love. And so, their story unfurled, a journey woven through the tapestry of faith, a powerful revelation that would resonate through generations to come, a testament echoing into the cosmos. Love is the true miracle, redeeming every heart, awakening every spirit, binding humanity together in the sacred journey back home to grace.